Welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magick with me, Steph, and my beautiful co-hosts, Lizzie and Tony. Today's episode is going to be all about tools of the craft. And we're going to start with candle.
Yeah. Which feels like you should start with it because you're a candle maker.
Yeah. I think when sourcing a candle, you should really think about what sort of wax you're using.
Obviously, feeling very, very familiar.
Why did you say that?
Because of your wax.
Well, actually, when I started making candles, so for those that don't know, I make candles as part of Lunar World. And when I started making candles, obviously there's so many different types of wax that you can use. So many different types.
Are there? Because I only thought there were like 4.
So there's obviously paraffin, which is in a lot of candles, which we want to avoid because it is toxic. We have beeswax. There is soy wax. There's coconut wax.
Rapeseed?
Coconut and rapeseed together.
Wow.
I feel like there is more.
There probably are.
Yeah.
All those people on Instagram using butter candles.
Oh, yeah.
Dipping their bread in.
Oh.
Delicious.
Don't know how I feel about that.
I'm like, butter candle.
But essentially, we all feel that candle, having a candle doesn't have to be an extravagant candle, could just be a simple white candle, is quite an important thing to have as part of your practice.
Yeah, I think white is a substitute for any colour, really, isn't it?
Yes.
But also it's the idea of sitting down somewhere and lighting it and starting your practice. It feels quite significant, doesn't it, to light a candle?
It's like a ritual in itself.
Exactly.
Just...
and obviously we burn a lot of stuff and we like burning things. I mean, when we're doing a releasing ritual, we'll write something down we want to let go of, and then we'll probably use the flame in our ceremonial candle to then burn it.
And also, even the act of blowing it out feels like ending the ritual in a really nice way, doesn't it? You know,
definitely
closing the ceremony.
So candle is probably the top on the list.
When we were talking about sort of like paraffin and everything, you know, we had a conversation before about the fact that we felt that actually using something that was toxic like paraffin had potentially negative repercussions to it, trying to use that in witchcraft practice. So while it is a privilege to be able to buy a cleaner wax like coconut or soy or beeswax, which is probably the preference, right?
Yeah.
Even though beeswax is quite expensive. I think if you can only use a paraffin candle, maybe try and use it outside.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
Toxic to everything else. But better for yourself.
But yeah, we're definitely firm believers of using what you have and not rushing out to buy things anyway. But we'll come to that a bit later.
Yeah.
So the next on the list...
It's still kind of you, I think.
Yeah.
It's
journal and pen.
Yeah.
So
you're quite a big journaler as well, aren't you?
Like a journal, yeah. I feel it. So my journal is essentially it's a brain dump, but also that's where I write rituals or spells that I remember. It's just in my journal, but I feel it's such a release. So for a ritual, it gets all the thoughts and feelings and intentions all in my brain are all.
Yeah, it's
let out through the pen onto the paper, and it's
such a good way to get things out of your brain onto the page. Yeah. And it's an act of releasing in a way.
And it's also sort of like, I guess, an archive of your development as well.
100%.
So you can kind of flip back to, you know,
to where you were at.
Started.
I mean, I've got journals. I really started properly journaling in 2020, I'd say. So I've got my whole year's worth of journaling that I can look back on and see where I was at. And I think it's such a good way of, like you're saying, seeing your progress, especially from years and years and years ago.
Also, interesting point that's just come to my brain now. If you're someone that has been through a lot of trauma, memory is a really big problem generally. It's actually sometimes a an indicator that someone's been through trauma or PTSD. And having a record of stuff written down can be really helpful for people that have bad memories. Because I have a really bad memory, but since you've kind of forced me into journaling with like the full moon and the new moon sessions, like if I hadn't written down like my thoughts and feelings at that time, I probably wouldn't remember them genuinely.
Wow.
Because I have a really bad memory. It's also part of my condition,
memory.
but yeah, memory is really bad for me. Like I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but like really like big periods of life are missing for me.
Right.
So actually it's also just a really nice way to kind of be able to look back at what your experiences were and your feelings were, you know, a few years ago, a few months ago, even a few weeks ago.
That's
definitely.
Do you know, it's so funny. So in the difference to you, I have a really long memory and I can hold on to memories and hold on to things a lot.
Do you want to forget them sometimes?
And I really want to forget them. I'm like, please, can I forget them? So journaling is my way of forgetting.
Yeah.
Or releasing, I guess. Yeah.
And the other thing that I tend to find is, as well, if I'm in flow with it, I can go and go and go.
Oh my God, yeah. Like the full moon we just did, I was,
just going.
Because I find journaling quite tricky, but actually through being guided, I've started to find it so much easier and it's pouring out of me now.
It just comes. It's just like...
I think a lot of people are quite resistant to journaling.
Well, it's a type of shadow work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And people find it really hard to go really deep into thinking about, you know, some of the guided questions and prompts that we use. It's quite
Your
a
ones
challenge.
are quite hard as well. Like they are,
Yeah.
like when you were challenging us on our decluttering and I'm like, I'm a hoarder over here. Wonderful. I actually private messaged her being like, you fucking piece.
Yes, she did. Private message me during the session.
Oh, really?
And was like, thanks for the cluttering prompt.
I think I was like, fuck you.
But it's, I think it's so important. It's one of the important ways to, as part of Witchcraft, of documenting your journey and how far you've come and your growth.
Well, even like foraging, like, because some people have like foraging journals, don't they? When you learn about a new plant and you write down like what its healing properties are, where you found it, what recipes you did with it. I found that really useful because every time you find a plant, like, oh, I finally found a hawthorn bush or whatever, you want to like write down where it was. It's really handy, isn't it?
Well, we were saying that, you know, journals are essentially grimoires, right?
Yeah.
So, they're
I think
bloody important part of your practice.
They're essential.
They're essential people. I think I have in my head, though, it was really interesting that a grimoire needs to be...
Yeah. I
you
felt
think it
like
like
that.
Yeah,
focus.
I didn't quite feel like that, but
Just
I
feel
was
like a bit midlife,
going back to we had a really great workshop in the Coven from Christy from Witchology.
Journal Supreme.
Journal Supreme. That's her. But she also is creative director at Witchology.
Oh yeah.
And it was an incredible workshop, and her journals
her journals
are amazing.
Yeah, blew my mind.
So I was thinking, one day I'd actually would really like to have a journal of, you know, like that, a grimoire that had, you know, really nicely laid out beautiful pages of things that I've learned on my journey that I'd like to document.
I feel like that's a little bit toxic for me, only because it made me think that journals should look like that.
Yes.
And I find that impossible to find the time to do that, or like to be that creatively. That she's really an artist, isn't she? She's an amazing artist. And I looked at it and I was like, this is making me feel shame because mine is bullet pointed.
Do you think that it's the same thing actually when people give you like a really nice journal and sometimes you don't want to use it? Yeah, it's that same sort of thing. But you're right. You're absolutely right. I think we need to have spaces and journaling books that are just literally just to write things down, get things out.
It's more important that you write than you don't write, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I'm working with someone from the Coven at the moment, and, we're doing some shadow work, and they said, actually, I really don't like journaling. And I said, don't think about it too much. And I was like, just bullet points a few things from your day. Start by doing that. Like maybe you want to write down what you ate for breakfast or something, or maybe you want to write down something that you thought of. You don't need to write paragraphs. Just document something and then build from there.
I think there's like it's almost like when you think of journaling, there's like this pressure that you have to write tons and tons of stuff.
Totally.
Actually, some of the journaling prompts, it may just spark you to write down, just a few words.
Sentence.
Or draw something. Yeah.
Or draw something. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, journal and pen, I think, is a top one for all of us.
Yeah.
Next one on the list is
Cauldron burning pot.
Oh, yeah.
cauldron burning pot. Yes.
That was actually, I think, one of the first magical items that I bought. I went and bought more of a kind of, it's like a black sort of like slightly raised burning pot. And I bought myself some of the charcoal discs and some of those Star Child kind of like natural resin incense. And that felt quite a significant purchase to me because it felt like something that I was going to be utilizing every day. And I actually had the kind of like the Sabbath incense, whatever, however you say it. So I had like the Brigid one, or I've got like Samhain, and I've got embark and Stara. And that process of like, I mean, we used it in the retreat, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that process of like cleansing people as they came in felt really important for starting our day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so buying that for me was like one of the first purchases that I made that was a brand new item, to be fair. And you don't need to buy brand new items, which we'll come back to. But it's something that I've had for 10 plus years and I still use it all the time. It was a really, really good purchase for me because it was like really good quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think's okay.
My burning pot, well, I don't know if this is actually in my cauldrons in shot, but I've got 2 really nice cauldrons that were actually vintage items sourced by my friend who lives in France. And I absolutely adore them. But I've got obviously this big one here. Hopefully you can see it. It's quite a big, large copper cauldron for those listening. And I've got a mini version of it as well, which I use mostly in my rituals for burning. But yeah, burning things to release, I feel is a huge part.
Oh yeah, totally.
And you definitely have to have a fire safe bowl.
Yeah, you do.
I'm big on that. Safety in witchcraft.
Safety. I think I agree, actually. I bought brand new a cauldron, like a sort of traditional black iron cauldron. And I remember when it arrived, I went, wow, okay, like it's real. I'm doing this.
I'm doing it.
I've bought it. And that felt very special. I am a witch. It felt really special because it was like, there we go, Lizzie. You're actively saying.
I mean, I was actually really fortunate. I found a cast iron cauldron in a secondhand shop. It's very rusty, but I reckon I can probably get it back to its original state. It's a bit bigger than that one. But I still feel like my small one is really accessible for kind of altar top work. I'd use the big cauldron outside maybe, and I think I brought it to the retreat. But yeah, I think having a small one's quite handy.
Yes. I like having my little small tiny cauldron. The next thing, which actually we probably should have spoken about first, is cleansing tools.
Yes, I do love a cleansing tool.
So what is your preference for a cleansing tool?
So I am obsessed with Palo Santo. Like I love the smell of it, although I know it's really important to ethically source it. Either that, I have recently really got into buying really good quality Blue Lotus flower incense, which is really good for spiritual work. But also sometimes because I can be quite sensitive to burning stuff, like my senses get kind of like uncomfortable. So I quite like a cleansing spray as well. And my preference is kind of like a fir cleansing spray, kind of like woodlandy, pine or fir or cedar or anything like that.
What about you, Lizzie?
So really similar, actually. I love Palo Santo. I say Palo Santo.
Definitely not Pali Santo. I've definitely heard Steph say a few times by accident.
Yeah, Palo Santo.
I think it's just the way I say it.
It is.
It comes out Pali Santo.
Palo Santo.
Yeah.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
my old Pali
got your little Pally. But I love Palo Santo. And I've always, and actually, I really, at the moment, I've got I bought this huge selenite wand. It's like this big. I feel like,
You do like the big crystals, don't you?
Like a big, juicy, crunchy crystal. But this I feel is amazing. I feel like you can feel it going.
Like you're at an airport, like.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing that.
Shops.
Like, hello, come in. But yeah, at the moment, my selenite wand, I'm really using that. I just love it. But those are my two at the moment. I did go through a real sage phase. I went through a massive sage phase, but I don't
Sage.
Oh, yes, everybody, for those at home, sage is another sort of a cleansing tool that we use. And
What I meant was what type of sage.
Oh, well, I have
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, we've gone there. White sage.
You used white sage, did you?
I did.
Oh,
Well,
that's
you
very
see,
naughty.
That was before.
But before you
I
knew. Yeah, which
and then I was
is a common mistake that obviously a lot of people make is beginning by using white sage, because it's still, you can still see it everywhere. It's everywhere, isn't it?
Everywhere.
Not a red flag. If someone who says the word smudging.
Yes.
Or, I mean, like some people do grow their own white sage, to be fair, which I think is different.
Yeah.
But it's not actually common for our culture here.
No.
You know, to be, it's more common, especially you being, you know, having Scottish descent, to do seining with rosemary.
Ah.
Quite similar. So seining is I think it's like a Scottish practice.
Oh.
Yeah, and you would most frequently use sort of like a bundle of dried rosemary.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to do that. Thanks very much. But yeah, I did use white sage.
So for those that don't know, smudging is a closed practice, indigenous practice. So
Sacred, yeah.
we don't smudge.
Nope.
No.
We definitely don't recommend
do it.
yeah.
And we don't recommend buying white sage really at all.
No.
So yeah, going back to
Cleansing tools.
I started making my own bundles.
Oh yeah, your bundles are lovely.
Last
I had a mugwort one from you.
So yeah, I had mugwort that was
My favourite
actually
of mine, by the way.
foraged by
mugwort.
Megan. Megan foraged that mugwort for me in the South Downs. Oh no, actually, was it in the South Downs? It was because she obviously does her like foraging retreats and stuff, so she has private land that she can actually legally forage stuff from. So I don't think it was from the South Downs. So I made some mugwort cleansing wands, and I grew rosemary and
lavender,
purple sage and lavender in my garden, and rose.
Oh, yeah.
So I had different ones. I think I had a rosemary, rose and lavender.
Yes, I got that one.
And the
Lavender's
mugwort.
lovely to use, I think.
And I think I did a sage, a purple sage.
I don't even really like the smell of sage.
No.
It really reminds me of roast pork.
I think it smells like weed.
I think weed as well, yeah.
Roast pork.
Don't know as much of a problem with that, but yeah, for me, like it just reminds me of like someone like roasting a pork and using sage, and so for me, it's like got a weird connection with meat.
Right.
Whereas for me, rosemary is just such a lovely smell.
It's gorgeous.
But again, with like lavender, I love lavender.
Yeah.
I think they are both very evocative of. Like,
it's so nice to actually sit down and weave the wand yourself as well.
Yeah, well, I think just weaving in general, isn't it? It's so like it's such an important part of witchcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love looking at like a hand woven bundle as well. It's really feels like a lot of love's gone into it.
Yeah,
Like you've actually almost like cast a spell in that process.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I got into making some of those last year, but I also really adore the smell of Palo Santo.
Yeah, it's so nice.
So the thing that's really important with Palo Santo is making sure that it's ethically sourced, because it's been very much over harvested.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one to look out for, guys.
I mean, I guess you could maybe go a little bit into like sustainably sourcing stuff in general.
Yeah, so sustainably sourcing, it's a tricky subject, because I feel like with sustainably sourcing stuff, it's never going to be perfect. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. You're never going to get something that's really perfectly sourced.
But it's a subject you're really passionate about, isn't it?
It is a subject that I'm really passionate about. I think don't be afraid to ask questions when you're buying something. Don't be afraid to pop a email over to whoever you're buying from and just ask questions. And that's particularly prevalent for buying crystals, I think. Asking where they're sourced from. Just dropping an email and just asking a few questions.
We asked in the shop all the time about it. It's ethnically sourced, you know.
Are they?
Yeah. So the owners take massive care over it. They've loved crystals for years, and they take the absolute care to make sure, because we're asked all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't want to.
It's so important because there's like, obviously, you know, it's some crystals are completely overmined, and then there's obviously the working conditions of the actual mine itself, and then there's obviously the huge issue of children being forced to work in the mines. So it's a very important one to make sure that you're sourcing.
Do you know any crystals that are overmined? So that's not something I really know anything about.
Well, actually, specific
crystals. Yeah,
I can't think of any over the top.
But you are definitely someone that's told me about heat treated crystals before, because I didn't know anything about them.
Yes, so
and I love fire agate, which is something that's heat treated a lot.
The main one is obviously when you go and buy citrine, normally you see it's heat treated amethyst. Essentially, it's not
really
citrine. But they call it citrine, but then they've got natural citrine, which is actually real citrine. Mm-hmm. So it's very confusing.
Yeah.
But if you see that, it looks beautiful though, like the bright, fiery citrine crystals that you see.
Yeah, they're stunning.
That's just heat treated amethyst.
Yeah. That's just a shame. I didn't know that. So I feel like I've learned a lot from you, because I went through a big phase of buying crystal towers. I don't know why, I was just really drawn to them. I guess we've got a few here.
Yes.
You know, for me, there's something about a crystal tower that feels really powerful. It's a bit like an organite. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the way they've got this kind of like really sturdy foundation, and then everything feels like it's centrally pointed up.
Is that the pyramid type ones you're talking about?
They're like pyramid, but they're kind of like built in a particular way that's supposed to enhance the qualities of the crystal, the energy healing properties. But for me, like, there's something about the shape of a tower that feels really powerful. And so I went through this big phase of buying towers, which I still use in a lot of my rituals and ceremonial like practices. But since talking to you about, you know, more like ethically sourced crystals, I've started buying more raw crystals, and actually they do have a different feeling to them.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And I just don't think that I realized before how different it is to receive a crystal that's been massively polished versus something that has been basically untouched. You're receiving something straight out of the ground. Yeah. And actually, you're, in my opinion, you're much more likely to gain the positive like energy from a crystal if it's been left in its original kind of state.
I totally agree with that. I'm going through a massive raw crystal phase at the moment. I feel exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Going on to crystals.
Oh yeah, we're going there now.
Because we've just sort of naturally moved on to it. What crystals would you say are essential to have?
I think essential for everyone. We're all going to say it. Tourmaline.
Yeah.
Such a protective crystal, protective against negative energies, against even against like EMF and stuff like that. You know, I feel very protected when I'm wearing one. I've got like a really chunky one. I actually, without like do a little plug, but I love someone called Smith & Son who makes talismans, which again, we'll probably come back to. But I have this amazing big chunky tourmaline set in silver that almost feels like it's got a thumbprint in it, so I can hold it. And it just feels so protective. I think that's one that's suitable for sort of anyone. But a crystal that I really like, or crystals that I like, I really like apotholite. It's a lot of my practice is to do with enhancing my intuition or spiritual connection, and apotholite's really good for that.
Yeah.
I even sometimes, if I've got a migraine, I'll sit in the bath and I'll put it on my third eye.
Yeah.
And it makes me, it genuinely, I know a lot of people think that seems weird, but it genuinely does help me. I get migraines a lot because of a condition that I have. And that's something that feels really good. It's probably something to do with it being really cold as well, and and then having the heat draw the like blood vessels down out of your head. But another one that I like is Lemurian. as well.
yeah.
Like I just love it. I'm wearing one right now. But it just feels like a shard of ice. And again, it's very similar in its properties with enhancing kind of like spiritual connection, dream work and stuff like that, lucid dreaming. So those are a couple that I really, really like. I wouldn't say it's because like they're visually really exciting or anything, but more just like the energy that I feel from them. I feel very connected to them.
Yeah.
What about you, Lizzie?
So I was gonna say tourmaline.
Yeah.
Very much so. I would say as well, for anybody who it hasn't bought a crystal, I would just straight away go for amethyst because of they call it like the lavender of the crystal world. Not only is it purple, but also the properties from it. So good with anxiety and depression and protection and sleep. And you can have it by your bed, you can have it under your pillow. It can sit on your altar beautifully. It's just a really like an all-rounder.
See, I really don't like amethyst.
So you're not an amethyst.
But amethyst likes me.
Loves you.
So like,
Is it because it's purple?
no, I don't know.
Because it's got really colourful.
No, I don't think that's it. I just don't feel drawn to it. But I heard someone in the coven said that they don't like citrine, which I love.
Oh, it's so interesting.
But you know, like I've never felt like drawn to amethyst yet. Like whenever people gift it to me all the time,
Right.
or it presents itself in the most weird scenarios.
calling to you.
So
it is calling to me,
Tony.
and I'm like, fine,
Nice.
okay.
All right, I'll get a
You
tower.
have some really beautiful pieces of amethyst.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I've got that one that I've turned into a talisman as well.
I saw that. It's beautiful.
And what I mean, like, I just love the idea of people making their own talismans to wear, which again, we'll probably talk about in a second. But it's just funny how you can be kind of like drawn to particular types of crystals and not
100%.
like I've never worked with rose quartz.
Right.
You know, recently, with this sort of like feeling like a need for more self-care and self-love, I've been like, maybe I should get a rose quartz. I don't own any at all.
Loads. I'm going through like a rose quartz mania at the moment because I think I need
Mania.
Yeah.
I like that.
because I feel like I need a lot of love, self-love.
Yeah.
But the other one I would say, I mean, I love it so much. I think selenite is amazing. It's cleansing.
Top one for me.
No, I don't like selenite either.
Really? It's so interesting.
You can't cleanse it in water.
No.
It's not
No.
water tolerant. I don't know if that's the right
It will
word.
just dissolve.
But also it splinters. So for me, it's kind of like you know what it is? It's probably a tactile thing. I don't really like the
Because
way
it's
it
shardy
feels.
and it can crumble. It has a crumbling.
It's not really for me.
Well, being a lunar witch, selenite's a big
Selenite
one.
queen.
There you go.
Sorry, I feel like I've offended the lunar witch.
But also moonstone is a big one.
Oh,
for
I
me.
do love moonstone.
And that's actually, I think, my birthstone as well. Moonstone. So, but yeah, I think probably essential again, I will say tourmaline.
Yeah.
100%. But from our conversation, it kind of feels like really it's a very personal
So personal.
choice.
Oh my word, yeah.
On what crystals you decide to use on. And as you say, as you go through your journey, you're drawn to different crystals for different things. So
Yeah.
it comes up at different times. But I think as a standard, I think tourmaline is probably,
For sure.
if we all agree that that is
That's a staple. And I guess
that's the
quartz as
staple.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quartz.
Because, you know, like there's that,
amplifying
what's that
energy.
saying again? You know, you can substitute any coloured candle with white. You
Yes.
can substitute any herb with rosemary, and you can substitute any crystal with quartz.
Of course,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like a bit of quartz.
I see. I
like
do like a
quartz.
bit of quartz as well.
And we also like things in quartz too.
Yeah.
Love a garden inclusion. That's my absolute favourite.
Tourmaline in quartz.
But also, I guess, like with a quartz crystal, it amplifies everything, doesn't it? So in your practice, it's a perfect thing to be at the centre with your candle
100%.
because it's going to amplify all of your work, enhance it, and so that's a great one.
Definitely.
Love crystals.
We like a crystal.
What's next on the list?
Talismans, maybe.
Talismans. We kind of
We brushed over it basically. But one of the thing when we're talking about daily rituals, one of the things I always do is pick a talisman to wear. And actually, I've always been a bit of a magpie, so I've always loved owning jewelry. But I've realised that there's literally no point in owning costume jewelry because it holds no significance to me at all. So I've kind of gutted out all of the costume jewelry, and now I just make my own talismans, or I'll buy from people that I really do feel like have amazing spiritual, magical powers with creating them. So I think I mentioned Smith & Son before as a maker that I really, really love. And we had someone in the coven that was also amazing at making talisman called Budi.
I also really like your friend Toba,
yeah.
who actually one thing that I do always wear for our ceremonies are these earrings, which are moonstone.
Moonstone, yeah.
So
and the moon.
pretty.
Yeah, she's amazing. She, that is her. Like, if she was to be any kind of witchcraft, she's a crafting witchcraft. She literally makes the most amazing jewelry with her hands. But yeah, as much as like I almost wanted to become someone that made talismans and sold them for other people, and now I realize that it's actually important to empower people to make their own talismans.
Definitely,
because they hold so much more significance for that person, and they feel special. It feels like something that you put love into and you put care into, and you've really, because it's not that easy to do actually.
Yeah, and like the wrapping as well, like weaving
love,
weaving
magic into it. Yeah. It feels really powerful to me. And I think we spoke about it on another episode, but you know, like sometimes we'll be doing work and I feel like I need to hold it.
Yeah.
I actually had to do a work thing the other day where I had to go into Parliament, and I walked through and they looked at my necklace and I was like, does this count as a sharp? Because it's pretty sharp. So you can do some damage with this.
It kind of looks like dagger-like, really.
Yeah, I know, going on for the Tories. Yeah, I do. I love a talisman. Oh, and Skari as well. It's another like Southeast Coast jewelry maker that I just think makes amazing talismans. But yeah, if you can make your own, and they're simple, but it does take patience. So, you know, you can get some beading wire and stuff like that, and you just have to kind of like play around with it for a while to kind of make sure that it kind of fits and is secure. And then I always encourage people to use chains that they already have.
Yeah, great.
Because you don't really need loads of chains, do you? You need like maybe
a couple that you
couple of good chains. You might have a gold one, you might have a silver one if you're lucky, and then you can just change the pendants on them. But I love picking a talisman in the morning, being like, this is the one that's going to help me through my day with my purpose. Again, it feels very intention based.
Yeah, definitely. I think talking about crafting your own talismans, I think you can craft anything really.
Yeah, you don't have to buy
as
anything.
a tool. You can use things that you already have to make things to use for your practice, right? So that's another, I think, important thing to mention. But also going out into nature and selecting items to use to, you know, on a different seasons or, you know, different aspects of your ritual work or ceremonial work.
Well, we do that for every Sabbath, don't we? We write down in the event pages, you know, go and take a long walk before we do the Sabbath. Think about like what you see in nature, what like flowers and flora and foliage that you're seeing. You know, you might see fir cones and chestnuts, or I don't know what you're seeing, but you know, stones and stuff like that. And think about trying to represent that in the different elements. You know, wind, air. No, that's the same thing. Air, fire, water. Not the wicked, that's the thing. Spirit. But, you know, try and like represent that in the items that you're looking for. Like feather, for instance, for air might be really good. And you can display them on your altar. You don't have to go and buy things. Oh my God, if we got onto the bloody subject of subscription boxes and all the crap people get sent, and they're like, it's exciting to receive like a present, isn't it? It's like you're receiving a present and it's got all the stuff in it and you're like, ooh, this is really exciting. A lot of it's plastic.
Actually, what's in it?
A lot of it's plastic and not useful and a bit of a rip-off. And actually, I mean, a lot of the time, even with herbs in your practice, you can use stuff that comes out of a tea bag.
Yeah,
really easy. You know, chamomile for me, like we didn't really write herbs down, but I think herbs are quite important.
Yeah, definitely.
And so like stuff like, again, rosemary. Lavender, chamomile. I like using fennel.
These are all herbs that you can grow yourself as well.
Or come in tea bags. So you might have stuff in your tea cupboard already, and you can literally just open a bag.
Yeah.
I use rosemary a lot because literally right by my gate where I live is a huge rosemary.
Isn't that a practical magic thing?
Do you know what?
Is it rosemary by your garden?
By your gate. Apparently that's for luck.
Yeah.
Every time Lizzie comes round, she brings me a sprig of rosemary.
Always give a sprig of rosemary.
Oh, that's
very sweet.
Cute. I love that.
Just a whittle.
It's like your little thing now.
It's my little thing.
I like making wild rosemary soda, actually.
Oh.
It's really, I'll send you the recipe.
Send the recipe.
I think we're going to send everyone the recipe. But I think, so talking about so we talked about lots of tools that you could potentially
we
use.
missed one, I think.
What was the other one?
Books.
Books. We love books.
Well, also just like I'm the book queen.
You
are the book queen.
I'm a book hoarder.
How could we miss books?
I know. Like, I think in terms of education, there are some staples that you just need, and you probably can buy a lot of them secondhand. You know, I've got an amazing secondhand shop in Hastings that I go to. But yeah, I mean, like, I just want to absorb all the information all the time. But one book that I really love, which is a relatively new book, I guess, is The Holy Wild by Danielle Dulski. She's just such a passionate witch. Like, her writing is witchcraft. It's amazing. But yeah, I think a good book, like having a good book, like a good compendium, whatever.
I think that's one thing that we've just started doing actually at the Coven is sharing.
Book
sharing.
So
I love that.
Definitely encourage book
I also
sharing.
saw
And
one of the Coven members read a book and literally passed it on immediately. And it was like a brand new book. It was Rituals for Life by Isla MacLeod, who's one of my favourite practitioners that I kind of follow online. And I just thought it was amazing that she read it and was happy to just pass it on straight
That's so
away. Like,
lovely.
because I get really attached to books. It's probably the hoarding side of me. But, you know, like I have like a lot of sentimental attachment to a book that I've read, and I find it really hard to release. So that's maybe something I'm going to have to try.
yeah, I've got some books I need to see if anyone wants in the Coven actually. But
Are they all your Wiccan books?
yeah.
Yeah, they are.
To be fair, Scott Cunningham is an amazing, he was an amazing writer.
You recommended that book to me.
Yeah, well, it's a good book.
Yeah. But also, I think...
Thanks for throwing me under the bus.
you recommended me that book. But, you know, that's part of my journey, though, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not... I'm not, like,
Sleep.
you know, ashamed of it
No.
at all. And, you know, I only recently stopped wearing a pentacle. So...
That was probably my fault as well.
Yeah, that was Tony's fault as well. But yeah, going back to the tools, I think we've covered quite a few. But what I will say is, and going back to probably the subscription box thing, don't go rushing out and buying loads of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lizzie. You're someone that likes stuff.
I like
Because you don't need to.
No, I do
You
as
don't
well.
need to.
Because I want it to look really pretty. But I heed that advice because I do go, oh, I see it like a magpie and go, mine.
Yeah.
Rather
especially
than-
jewelry,
Do you know what,
like,
though?
it's
I mean,
great.
if you want to, then
If you're drawn to something,
by all
yeah.
means do it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary.
Yeah.
No.
Is what I'm trying to
It's not,
is the
not an
point.
essential tool, yeah.
No, it's not essential to go and buy loads of pretty things.
Or like a witch starter kit.
Yeah.
As Etsy seems to like to shove in
Yeah.
our faces all the time.
Yeah.
It's
not needed.
Yeah, you get like these boxes of these tiny little glass vials with all these little herbs in.
Oh,
I'm like, what a waste of tap that is.
Yeah.
Tattoo tap tap.
I remember saying, Steph, should I get a witch casket? Steph was like, no.
No, you know, shade on those people, but I just think it creates more waste.
Yeah.
And I just think it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
You certainly don't need a month's worth every month.
No, it's a lot.
What's next?
So with like that's of like less essential tools, we're talking about more ceremonial stuff,
Right.
which might be like an athame, which is like a fancy word for a ritual knife, which I guess is used again in a bit more kind of like ritualistic kind of blood magic or something where you might cut your hand or you. I think when we had a workshop about it the other day in the Coven, I suggested that people, instead of getting a traditional athame, that they got a foraging knife.
Yeah.
Because actually a foraging knife is really handy, especially if you're into like foraging mushrooms. You know, it's a really good way to kind of like collect them. They're kind of slightly hooked knife.
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
But that works really well on your altar as well. But it's actually something that's quite practical. Yeah, so I mean, I had one handed down to me by Tom's granddad, which I've ended up using, which is really nice. So it's always nice to kind of keep these things in the family if your grandparents, you know, happen to have a lot of things, and you know, you can check if any of that works with your craft. but also stuff like a sword. You know, a sword represents a lot of masculine energy. If that's something that you're drawn to, it's often in a lot of imagery on tarot cards. It could be quite a powerful thing to use in rituals as well.
It's another thing that we didn't talk about, actually, having a tarot deck.
Tarot deck.
Well, divination tools kind of fall into their own category, don't they?
True.
So, you know, you might be drawn to different you know, for some people it will be tarot, some people it will be runes, some people it will be like a candle.
Yeah.
Like I personally like scrying, but you know, we do have people that like read tarot every single day, so that might belong on their altar. I've actually got some really nice runes that are made out of quartz that have like gold writing on them, and they feel really nice because they're kind of like multifaceted, so they can kind of fall on different sides. And because normally with a rune you kind of fall two ways. But with like a bit chunk of quartz, it kind of fall in lots of different ways. I like runes a lot.
I haven't used runes. It's funny, I got given at Christmas, a friend bought me a set, but I've never used it. It's really straight. Like I use my tarot deck all the time.
Do you just not feel drawn to?
Yeah, I wasn't drawn. It's funny.
I think you should have a go. I think it's worth having a go, because actually I think in a way runes are easier to use than tarot. So they can be quite accessible as a divination tool. Yeah, I really like them. It's quite similar also to like throwing bones. Have you heard of that? You know, they have like lots of different bones and they represent different things. And, you know, I think that's also another really good divination tool, a bit like kind of like tea leaf reading. You kind of like make shapes out of the bones and everything and see images or receive messages from spirit. But yeah, I think divination tools are a big one, but it's more about which one you feel
drawn to. Again, same with crystals.
Yeah, and so like another, I guess a non-essential one, but if you're someone that's into like ancestral work like I am, having photos of your ancestors on your altar is quite important. You know.
So what we're saying really is there's tools that are going to be essential to your practice. So it can be quite individual in some respects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's next? I can't remember.
I feel like that's kind of it, isn't it? You know, I mean, there are other things like, you know, some people like to have like a pestle and mortar. If you're someone that uses herbs quite a lot, that can be a really handy tool to have. I love to work with matches. I hate using lighters. I know that they're really convenient, but there's something really nice about striking a match. Again, it feels like ritualistic in itself. So matches are really important. I think twine's really important for weaving you know, if you need to weave anything. But yeah, I think that's kind of it.
The other thing I was going to say actually is going back to sourcing is, I think we may have touched on this a little bit, but you don't need to buy this stuff new either. You can source stuff at charity shops or antiques. A lot of the stuff I use in my practice are antiques. Like I've got antique candlestick holders. My cauldrons are antiques. I can't remember what else I've got now, but quite a lot of the stuff I use has been sourced from antique stores.
Brass candlestick holders are really cheap and they look gorgeous.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I've got quite a few of those.
I feel like you should touch on essential oils as well.
Oh yeah, essential oils. Essential oils are not for everyone. I absolutely love essential oils. I love that they're derived from plants, obviously. And the only thing I will say is I like to source them organic. So I have my favourite place where I source essential oils, which unfortunately seems like they've closed, which is really sad.
So you do a little bit of a spending spree.
So I did a little bit of a spending spree recently to stock up on those because I really enjoy using them in my personal practice. Like we do a lot of work on like making spell jars and things, and I like to use the oils. We made ritual oils and the imposter syndrome oil that we made, which I absolutely love.
Amazing.
So we use a lot of essential oils in the work that we do. But again, it's something that's not for everyone.
No, and you don't need all of them as well. Like again, I think you feel drawn to them. I think I messaged you the other night because you and I are really fond of ritual baths.
Yes.
Not together, separately. But
that podcast.
I mean, I'm open if you are. But for the first time, I put cedarwood in my bath, and I prefer using magnesium flakes to Epsom salts, and so I had a magnesium bath with cedarwood, and oh my god,
is that because they're a bit gentler?
They're a little bit gentler, but also it's the best way for the body to take in magnesium, because if you take we're getting into vitamins now, which is a totally different subject. But if you take it orally, your body takes everything that it gets given. Whereas if you get into a magnesium bath, it'll only take what it needs.
Yeah,
so it's actually better for you.
Yeah.
And it's very relaxing. But yeah, so I mean, to tell you my favorite blend, my secret favorite blend of essential oils, it'll be lavender, copaiba, and cedarwood. And for anyone that doesn't know, copaiba is a bit like a resinous version of CBD. So it's like a relaxant. It has like pain relief qualities. Oh, it's really good. Yeah. And I actually love the smell of it. So yeah, I'm really drawn to woody scents anyway. But for me, it's funny how I've come back around to lavender, because I think when we were younger, it was seen as a bit of an old fuddy-duddy thing.
And a bit,
I love it. Especially through the summer, like smelling fresh lavender as you're walking around in the sun. But yeah, lavender, cedarwood, and copaiba is the combination for me. It's like the golden three. They just work so well together for relaxation. So I think, although I use them quite a bit in our ceremonial stuff, with like our group practice, I don't use them a lot unless it's in a bath.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of ritual baths.
Yeah.
When I first started practicing, actually, most of my ritual and spell work would be done in the bath. I obviously am very connected to water, being a water sign. So I found it really, I don't know, like a really powerful feeling doing that work in the bath.
I find it's the only place that I feel completely able to meditate.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, being someone that has a pain condition, a bath has become a really good tool for being able to kind of like relax my nervous system. And it's at that point in which the water becomes cold enough that it's like the air and the water is almost the same temperature, a bit like being in a flotation tank. And it's at that point that my body goes completely still and my mind goes completely silent, and I can meditate. Yeah. But it's just amazing. So maybe a bath is an essential tool.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to with this.
Some people don't have baths, though.
Sorry.
And
you can do it in the shower, though.
But yeah, you could have a similar experience in the shower using like a salt rub for cleansing.
I use your salt scrubs.
Yeah.
You can also make essentially like a big tea bag. I guess it's like a muslin cloth, and you put all the herbs, the natural herbs in, like you might put chamomile and lavender and stuff like that, and you can hang it under the shower head. So as you're being showered, the water's coming down, it's kind of hitting the herbs, and you're kind of getting the aromas, and you're getting all of the good qualities.
So I have fresh eucalyptus in my shower.
Yeah,
I really want that in my shower.
Yeah, because for me, the shower actually is where I imagine sort of cleansing as well, like it washes away. But I've used your beautiful bath salts, but as a scrub.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's a scrub.
Oh, but that's kind of painful.
Well, you feel quite
Dead sea salt.
That sounds kind of grainy.
It's quite grainy. But you feel quite like your skin is like
it's buffed. It's been buffed. You've been polished.
And it's tinging, like ringing,
Did we go through all of the ritual ceremonial tools?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think I may have cut you off.
I said photos, pestle and mortar, sword, matches. Oh, one more, I guess, which is definitely not essential, but it might, for anyone that's kind of, I guess, going down more of a pagan or like druid path, lots of people have staffs or stangs. Like a stang looks a bit like a staff, but it's got like two points, I think. It's kind of like a crooked top, whereas like a normal staff it's like a big stick, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people use them for like pilgrimages, and they use them for foraging and going out onto the land. So that's the only other thing that's pretty common in, I guess, like paganism.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I thought of that we haven't actually mentioned, which you use a lot, is a bell.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do. The thing is, it feels essential to me, but I guess it's maybe not essential to everyone. I mean, I have quite a few things that maybe aren't essential to everyone. But yeah, like I like to use a bell in rituals because it feels like a really good way to like signal when it's started and when it's closed. It's sound cleansing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like this has started. It's actually a bit strange because it might bring us back to like being in school, you know, and when it was like, it's playtime. Or playtime's ended. But yeah, no, I really like using a bell in rituals. And actually I started by buying a brass bell, and I realized that the kind of bell that I like to use is glass. Which is, again, I bought in a secondhand shop, and they're really, really easy to source at a very reasonable price. I think I probably paid like £4 for mine, but it just has this really beautiful
Like,
kind of like thing.
I quite like to source a bell, actually. I don't have one.
But they sound quite different. I guess it's a bit like singing bowls, you know.
Yeah.
A glass, crystal and brass can all sound really
Amazing.
different. And just, for me, something about like ringing glass, just, it's just got this really like high pitched, like soft
Because it's
sound.
lovely when you finish, you hear.
Yeah, like a little fairy has come through and said, that is the end.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
So, wrapping up, I just want to go through. We've had quite a big conversation today about lots of different tools. Lots of different tools have come up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should wrap up with what are literally the most essential ones to get started.
Okay.
So, what we're saying: candle,
Yeah.
journal and pen.
Yeah.
I'd say I genuinely would feel a crystal of your
choosing.
Yeah.
A crystal of your choosing. And
I still think a fireproof bowl is
Fireproof
really
bowl.
important. But you can use anything. Like even like a cereal bowl would work if you didn't have any money. You know, it just needs to be fireproof.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's pretty essential.
Yeah. I think that's
Say.
oh yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
would be mine.
And a cleansing tool.
Oh, and a cleansing tool, quite important, I would say. Yeah. I think that's a good
Essential Tools 101.
Essential Tools 101, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I think the rest of it is just whether you want to choose it really or not.
Yeah.
Whether
just
you
a very personal thing.
very
isn't it?
personal choice, yeah. But you just don't need to go crazy overboard, I would say.
No.
But yeah,
And I guess if you have something that you're not using, pass it on.
pass it on, exactly. Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do. Isn't it
is a
If you
nice
buy
thing to
something
do.
and it doesn't connect with you, pass it on.
Pass it on.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for joining me, and thanks for watching. Please feel free to let us know in the comments your favourite tools, your essential tools, and for your practice. And yeah, we'll see you again soon for another episode of Embracing Magick.
Embracing Magick.